Coffee, I got my water. I almost brought a plate for everybody. Charcuterie. You go cookies, I go meats and cheeses, but it's we'll get there.
Terry was 41. Class of 41.
Oh.
William.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's my cousin.
I was out there.
Yeah,
I told you it was about 30 or 30.
yeah. No, that's my cousin.
Class of 41. Because I was over here yesterday looking at the portal. Checked it out.
Who holds the record, Manfredi's or Sedati's for the most people through these halls? Do you think?
Manfredi tried to, I think he
Quite a
said,
few.
yeah.
Most of my nieces and nephews.
No, it was, I think, the most consecutive thing. I think he said,
I've heard him, they're the only family that has consecutively had a,
like, they didn't miss many years of not having somebody in there.
like sheer numbers. Sedati's might beat out.
All right,
Manfredi's.
competition.
You can't count my brothers, they didn't
Although your
finish.
family's putting up some big numbers, just in your cousins.
And I was just in Berkshire most.
He's made the switch. Yes.
I saw her at school at Bernadette last night.
Yeah.
She said she
I just
prefers
want
to
to
overwork
lean
it.
on the
It's
tennis
funny.
That's hilarious.
It was so funny. It was just so cute.
Yeah, she,
His wife was the Miles whisperer for my child, and it was a lot to handle. Stephanie had a way with him. Is that the patient commissioner?
Yes.
We'll find time just to introduce you. Or, Sarah has never met that in person.
Yeah, I told her, and then maybe after.
Oh.
It's
Very holiday.
I had it scarfed up.
There. No green.
Little pattern.
Scarfed up.
Yeah.
And that's what I was telling them, I almost brought a plate, because I was figuring we didn't get dinner yet, but then it might be distracting if we're spilling food all over everything.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Do I have to use this? Okay, welcome everyone. We're gonna try not to use the microphones, but if you guys can't hear us, please shout and we'll just turn them on. Actually, they are not on. Okay. Okay, this meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not considered a public community meeting. There's a place for public input in each month's regular meeting. Can I have the roll call?
Mrs. Matthews,
Here?
Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Sedity,
Here.
Mr. Simpkins,
Here.
Mrs. Zoll.
Here. Can you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? The flag is over here.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I'm just going to start off with reading a prepared statement and giving some, laying out some, the format of tonight's meeting, and and making a few statements. So each day, we get closer to making the final decision on the upcoming merger. And the truth is that we have a lot of data to review, and tonight we will continue that process prior to making any recommendation. As we take these steps to explore an upcoming merger, we will continue to work to inform our community. Both Berkshire and West Geauga have a lot to offer Newbury families, and we also bring a lot to the table. We know our declining enrollment necessitates a hard look at our district's future. In the past 9 years, our student enrollment declined by 44% while our staffing levels increased, and we all know that's not sustainable. As a board, we have a fiduciary as well as an educational responsibility to our community. These items must be reviewed and executed in the context of each other. The bottom line is that some decisions are difficult to make, and all 5 board members were entrusted to weigh this detailed information and ultimately make these extremely complex decisions while listening to our community to ensure that we carry their values forward. The online survey helped us better understand the scope and the breadth of current perceptions and concerns for the future. I'm very pleased that 277 people opted in to give us their feedback, and we'll use that information to help us create a transition plan that protects education and our community values. A full report is forthcoming, but I can give you a glimpse of the findings. From the online survey, the top 3 priorities identified were 1, a wide array of course offerings at all levels, 2, quality, well-paid teachers, and 3, financial stability. And I can tell you that we're going to review some data tonight, but you're able to see that in our neighboring and peer districts, 1, you can see that they're offering AP and honors courses, a larger number of those. 2, our teachers are paid significantly less than both Berkshire and West Geauga. And 3, the districts of similar size are educating students on average $6,000 less per pupil. We know there are intangibles and more emotional reasons that concern residents regarding a merger. Some mentioned appreciation for our small school environment and maintaining our community's identity. It will be important for us to continue to listen to our residents as we work with both Berkshire and West Geauga to determine the best path while protecting what makes our community unique. As we move into tonight's meeting, I want to remind our audience that board policy does not allow for public input during work sessions. This meeting's purpose is for the board to do its work in public, and if you're unwilling to follow that, we will ask you to be removed. As you can see, the material on the agenda to be covered tonight is lengthy, and there's much work to be done. The board received the information a week ago, so they had time to study it before tonight's meeting. I'll be facilitating tonight's work session, and I ask that all of us respect each other's differing opinions. The format will be to go through each section one at a time. All board members are encouraged to identify observed strengths or opportunities and weaknesses or concerns. There very well may be a board member that identifies a strength that's different for a board member that might be identified as a weakness, and I can almost guarantee that's going to happen, and that's okay. For time purposes, I asked the board to identify generalities rather than specifics. So for example, like Newbury has ceramics, but Berkshire doesn't, or West G has graphics design and Newbury doesn't, or whatever the line item is. We're not going to try not to go each line item by line item, or else it would be for a long meeting. Also, I'd recommend that our board not make any conclusions as we work through this analysis tonight. The purpose of the work session should be to truly compare the topics in front of us. And conclusions can and will be made at a later date once the board has had a chance to digest tonight's discussion and we're able to receive any answers to questions that may arise tonight. I invited Mrs. Sustar from the Geauga County Auditor's Office so the board can ask her questions as an expert about the tax implications to our district, and obviously Dr. Hoynes and Mrs. Palm are available for questions as well. Any questions that require a follow-up response will be recorded and if appropriate will be shared in our next public meeting. So as we are exploring a possible merger with Berkshire or West Geauga, it's important for us to make a data-driven decision that's focused on what's best for students. As I mentioned, we have a large amount of data to review tonight, and I urge everyone to examine it through that lens, what's best for the students. Second, we also have to examine the data in terms of fiscal responsibility. As stewards of communities' tax dollars, we have to balance that fiscal responsibility while ensuring an excellent education for our students. I'll identify the section that we'll discuss so we can all follow along. And since we have a lot of material to cover, I was wondering if one of us can be assigned as a task manager. So I don't know, like Kirk or Terry, somebody that can just be able to identify, if we're getting off in the weeds and not on topic, if you could just kind of.
Very accountability, we'll all keep
Yeah,
ourselves.
okay, all right, and then if somebody can use those flip charts, we're gonna identify what those strengths or weaknesses or concerns are, and then maybe if we need to revisit topics, we can jot those down as well. So if I could have somebody closest to that jump up and be the one to record that, that would be helpful. Any questions? We good? All right. All right, so if we're all ready, we can start. And the first data report is the CUP report. It's handout A. We're starting with this report because it's the big picture report giving us an overview of the property valuations, local tax effort, and revenues and expenditures per pupil. So are there any comments, questions, or concerns about this overview report?
How much impact does the students with disabilities, I see we have 19, almost 20%. And how much does that show in our expenditures per pupil? I mean, you know, that's been the big thing is what we spend per pupil, but how much is because of our high students with disabilities?
I wouldn't even know how to compute that.
I mean, because we're substantially higher than like West Geauga
In percentage of
percentage.
what we're identifying.
And
You're right, it depends on what their disability is, and what kind of extra services they
right.
And I pulled our most recent maintenance of effort report today off of ODE, and it's showing what we're spending per pupil for special ed, and it's right around a little bit over 26,500. I reached out to both Karen and Beth from West Geauga and Berkshire, and I heard back last minute just from West Geauga. And
You said that's per 26, I'm sorry, 26 is a monthly or that's per pupil?
per pupil, the average cost for special ed per pupil is $26,445.53. I heard back from Karen, and I didn't even have time. And theirs is $26,321.11.
That was what you.
Comparable per what they're spending, but their percentage is less, correct? Substantially. I mean, and I just, you know, when you look at the whole picture of what we're spending per pupil, I mean, we've got 20% almost, and they're at 10%.
Do you know what the factors are? What the factors are in identifying that percentage, like?
Anybody on?
Yeah,
So who does the identification of how, I guess, that's the logistics, how do they get identified and why are we identifying such a higher percentage, I guess?
Well, there's a whole process, you know, before we even test a child, we go through different efforts within the classroom. And then the psychologist tests and the whole IEP team makes that determination.
And how often so there's an initial assessment and then is there a reassessment? Every year, annually? And do you expect that percentage to stay the same, or have you not started the reassessment for this year?
You know, their re-eval is typically the year they enter the program.
So everybody's on a different year? Oh, okay. Do you know how many are getting reevaluated this coming year?
Every
Or
year there's an
schedule?
annual review.
It's just not gonna be all at one time, like it's
Oh,
all within
the
year.
date, the anniversary. It's at
Exactly.
the anniversary. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
the average, so I guess, I want to make sure that we're marking down what we view as clear strength and weakness, so that we can, at the end of this, we can all kind of re-review it after we're done discussing. So is there anyone that's willing to jump up and do that?
You wanna see my handwriting?
So that's a no for Terry. Anybody? Oh, thank you.
So how do you want that to look? You want, so that's obviously for a concern of yours, Marty, or how would you?
Well, yeah.
Like
I
what
don't think
column?
I think it just skews our overall, what we're paying per pupil, because we're paying 26,000 for,
5% more.
for, yeah, I mean, we're paying for a higher percent, we have a higher percentage of.
I guess the question, I guess one of the questions would be, what do those percentages mean in, I don't know if we have this information, if we don't, that's fine. What do those percentages equate in actual student numbers? So is our 19%
Of our total.
6 people, is Berkshire's?
20%
So-
by 350 kids.
So it
Yeah.
takes the ADM, it takes the ADM and it divides it by what we spend out of local funding, and that's how you get the average.
So if we took the
So like.
population of each of these, and we could figure out how many students.
You would need the special ed count, so
Well,
like the
I
special ed
think the
count.
percentage is what the important number is, not the actual number.
Right, it's not,
Yeah.
and I mean, it just, it would skew no matter which way, unless you were, well, it'd skew no matter what, you're spending more money on those students, which then in turn goes to our total expenditures here per pupil. That's why I've always been a little bit
So he's-
concerned
so
with that.
if
We
he-
do have a high percentage of special needs students.
So if you want to do like a strengths and concerns column, and it would be for handout A. So you want to,
I would say it's one of our strengths. I mean, we're educating, especially there, we've had people in the past that I know for a fact that want their kids at our school because it is a smaller environment. Their kids are more manageable, so as far as they're not lost in the shuffle.
so are you kind
I'm
of
saying
implying
it's
that
a strength.
they may want to come
Right.
to our district? It might be something that's drawing them here. is
Right,
to be
but I'm
able to
also,
utilize.
yeah, but I'm also saying too, with that in turn, our cost per pupil goes up.
Okay. So how do you want me to?
So strengths would be, it would be a strength for him, that he's stating that we're educating our special needs population, and we're doing so within the budget that we're given. Is that what you're saying? Is
Yeah.
that fair enough?
Sure, in a roundabout way. I'm just saying, I guess when I keep looking at this bottom number, total expenditure per pupil.
Okay, you're trying to, it's just helping us to put in perspective the.
Right, but I mean, I do believe it's a strength because none of these other schools have that high of a percentage.
So do you want it in both columns then, cost-wise, it's a concern, but it
Oh, yeah.
culturally is a strength? Is that what I'm
Sure.
hearing?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's good. So how do you want me to say that? Students, identified students? How do you want me to-
Percentage.
Sure.
Percentage. So while she's putting that together, does anyone have anything else about that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind is, regardless of percent, what programs do either Berkshire or West Shore have to manage the special ed population? And what's the spectrum, like low IEP to severe need? I guess, like, that's what goes through my mind more than the percent. Like, I understand that it'll definitely skew the number, but who's better equipped to handle the special needs?
And I don't know if you want to address it now, but on the miscellaneous page,
Yeah.
I interviewed both districts on what they do for special ed, what programs they have to make sure our students would go to the same program.
Right.
And, it's the law when you identify kids that you need to meet their needs.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't necessarily have a choice, they've got to handle it one way or another.
Exactly.
The question is, and I'll give an example, my daughter has been in multiple school systems for special needs, and one school could have cared less, right? The other, really good job. The people in the office, they know us, they know her, they know the teachers. The other school, no clue, could care less. So what's that look like inside of Berkshire or West G? Is where I
It's
come
where
from.
you're going.
Yeah.
And the only way I would be able to answer that as a former special teacher, is I always encourage parents to go visit programs. And parents have a lot of rights, and
Absolutely.
if a school doesn't recommend a program and you go visit and you don't like it,
Right.
yeah, because that's your child that you have to advocate
It
for.
is. Now, some parents don't have a choice, right? We all have a choice, but some are in more challenging situations than others. So the question is, in our population, what does that look like too?
So I think in the miscellaneous section of the handouts, we do touch it a little bit more, but I still don't know if we're gonna have the complete answer for that. And if that's something that you're looking for, then maybe we, can try to get more detailed information about what those programs look like.
And what you value out of it as a participant, and then maybe some of the things that you value in them and you'd like to see if they have them, well,
And I know that sorry.
No, they have this, like for children with autism, they use the same programs we use.
Yeah.
Both
Stars.
districts do.
Yeah. Okay.
I know the transition plan for that population of our children is a concern too, because I know that the adjustment, the transition process can be something that's a little
Well,
challenging.
and a lot of those programs are county classroom programs, so they're just housed in a district. As you know, I'm telling you anything you don't know, but the culture inside the school is one thing that's completely different.
Well, and what I found talking to the two districts were philosophical differences. At West G, for example, they really believe in more inclusion. So they don't pull out their ED kids at all. They work with teachers on behavior management techniques. I didn't see as much of that at Berkshire, but I didn't talk to the special ed director there either. So to be fair, I think that's important to see what their philosophy is.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Thank you. Other notes, and I touched on it in my opening, was the salary. You can obviously, we actually saw that in a presentation last month, but this kind of breaks it down specifically for each district. So you can see that the average classroom teacher salary is lower here.
What line, which page?
Right
On the
in
first
that
page of the cover point?
There's only one page.
Oh, it's on there, okay. I'm not seeing the revenue. Oh, revenues, okay, it's too high, okay.
And if looking at the total property tax per pupil, that's where I might kind of bring in Mrs. Sustar, if you don't mind. And feel free to come if you can't hear us, but I did have a few questions. I know when we're talking about the taxes, it can be confusing for several reasons, but if either you or Sarah, if you could explain what a mill is and maybe even the inside mill, just again, I know the board has heard this and maybe understands it, but just so that it's in the context of our conversation, if one of you could explain that, that would be great.
You want me to take the lead on that?
Sure.
A mill is actually 1/1000. So when they speak about having a 1 mill levy, it's based on 1/1000 of the value. Taxes are based on 35% of an estimated market value. So if you have a $100,000 house, you're actually going to be taxed on $35,000. Since a mill is 1/1000, 1 mill would cost $35 on that $100,000 home. That's would be new millage. Old millage had rollbacks post the residential credit and credit, which would be about 12.5%. So that would be a discount that the state picked up and paid for that credit. I do have some handouts for you as far as taxes go. The auditor's office is working on putting a database on their website that would be geared toward the tax districts that would be affected by a merger, Berkshire, West G, and Newbury. So Russell Township would be able to log into the website and say, currently, this is how much I'm paying for property taxes on this Geauga school district. If Newbury merged in, would that change my taxes? And the answer to that is probably yes, and it will probably reduce the taxes for someone living in Russell Township. West G has emergency levies that are based on a fixed dollar amount. So as you bring in more property values, that takes less millage to generate that same fixed dollar amount of revenue. In the case of Berkshire, they have a 3.65 mil bond levy, as we would bring in, as Newbury would bring in their property values. It would take less millage to generate the revenue required for the debt service on that bond. So I have some printouts for you. In the case currently, like I said, the auditor is has 2 people in their IT department that are working on algorithms to post that on the website. Great. And then we are working on the numbers.
Sorry. There's a million.
That's okay.
No, there's.
Has everybody got one?
I got one. I do not know. Thank you.
As it stands right now, Berkshire has a residential effective millage of 24.9 mils, which would be basically that $35 times 29 mils. If they combined with Newbury, they would see a reduction down to approximately 23.6 mils. In the case of West Geauga, they currently have a residential effective rate of 31.07 mils. If they merged with, if Newbury merged with West Geauga, that millage would drop to approximately 29.17, 29.18. I understand they are thinking about doing a bond levy. We don't have any documents from them. It's just been, can you tell us what would happen if this? So
That's West G.
that's West G. For the Newbury School District, current district millage, residents are paying 43.9 mils for the, just for the school. We did not include any of the township millage or county millage for this because one township to another is going to be different. If Newbury merged with Berkshire, we have estimated that the millage would drop to 23.63 mils. If they merged with West Geauga, the millage would drop to 29.18 mils. Where I am being told that we're probably 2 to 3 weeks away from getting that database on the auditor's website. It will be the kind of thing where you can put in your property address or your parcel number, and it will calculate exactly the dollar that you would be paying in taxes currently to the Newbury School District, and then potentially for West Geauga School District or Berkshire School District.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. House Bill 920, does it affect emergency levies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and no. House Bill 920 was passed in 1976. Basically what it said was, if you passed a levy in 1976 and your house was worth $50,000, but now, just market value and appreciation, it's worth $200,000, you don't have to pay 4 times the amount in taxes. They're going to, the state of Ohio has a Department of Tax Equalization. They're going to keep that pretty steady. That is basically for the voted millage. Emergency levies are different because it's a fixed amount. So as property values increase, it takes less millage to generate that same $500,000 revenue.
So it's built in.
So it's built in.
Okay, that makes sense. So when we're talking about the actual rollback though, we're really looking at the permanent money because the emergency money is a built-in fix.
It's built in. And
Okay.
House Bill 920, that's across the board. The only thing that House Bill 920 doesn't factor into are the emergency levies and the bond levies.
Right, okay. Makes
And
sense, 'cause that's
again, as
levies.
property values increase, that's almost built in because it's based on a fixed dollar amount of revenue generated.
Okay, one question for you. When we're looking at the earned income tax, I know that there's been a lot of discussion, not publicly, but what income is eligible to be taxed and how what that calculation looks? Is it?
That's not that's not us.
Okay.
And that is not gonna be on the website. We're only going to deal with real estate property taxes.
Okay.
Earned income, and maybe Mr. Gifford could speak to that a little bit better than I could. It is not collected on retirement income. So someone on Social Security would not have to pay an earned income tax. It's only on earned wages.
Okay, so if we wanted to drill into the specifics of that calculation, we can maybe look into that further. Maybe even if that might be able to give us a fact sheet of what that looks like for them. I know, I've heard something, thank you very much. And I've heard something about like the first 70,000 is not tax of earned income. I don't know for sure, but
The other thing that I,
But I think we just need to find out exactly who to go to, maybe have to look at it from Berkshire would be the great, better source, because none of us know that anything we say at this point is pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe if Sarah, would you mind following that with us and see if she can come up with maybe a fact sheet about what income is taxed over there?
if we're done with mills, would you want on the screen? Oh, no.
I have
Oh,
a
yeah.
question. Hey, Bev.
Yep.
I apologize I did not ask you this in advance. West Geauga usually is Excel Tech, but we use Auburn Career Center, would we still have to pay?
And again, we're not gonna factor that in, because that's a separate school district.
Okay.
You're right, West Geauga has their own in-house vocational school, where Newbury uses Auburn. That's $1.5 million. And if Newbury decided to merge with Berkshire, they would continue to pay that $1.5 million.
And if we collect 4 mils of inside millage,
No.
and Berkshire and West only collect, if they collect less, where would that actually?
Newbury collects 5.1 mils inside village. Berkshire and West Geauga collect 4.5.
Would it go back to the township?
It would go back to the township more than likely. There's a rule that you have to be equal across the districts.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Anybody have any other questions for Mrs. Sustar? Well, we should probably start writing some of these things. I would say for strengths and looking at what could be an opportunity for our community is that our village goes down in either direction. Berkshire and West G. So
Should I put the appendix here?
I don't think it matters. I think we're looking at strengths or opportunities as a whole, right? Is that what we're trying to accomplish here? Not specifically for one option, but for all of the options. So I would put it in a strength. Any other notes or strengths or concerns from that conversation?
So that calculation on the website is only going to calculate real estate value, taxable real estate value. It doesn't include our earned income tax. It may not include the vocational school on the West Shore side. So is it truly giving an accurate picture of what somebody would be paying if they went onto that and calculated it.
Well, they would calculate, it would.
It
because
would for just the real estate.
property, and then we'd have to talk, that's what Marty was saying, we have to talk to Beth to get it
Yeah, we have
calculated
to
for
get
income
different,
tax.
we have to get some other numbers.
Yeah.
And some,
And
whether
is it
it's
just
on
that?
our-
Like, what else is there that we need to be looking at?
Yeah.
Is it, okay, Auburn, okay.
That one and a half.
And if you want, I can take that to Auditor Walter and ask him, you know, if there's a way to factor that in as well.
Okay, that would be helpful, thank you. Anything else anybody wants on the chart? Good for now. Any other, you guys want to talk about anything else on the CUP report? And obviously, our total expenditures per pupil is higher. Our total revenue per pupil is higher. Those are some obvious observations, but if you guys have any discussions about that specifically.
The federal revenue per pupil, is that what we get from the federal government?
It would be title, anything with the word title in it.
Not much.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can see, I guess, our total local revenue is basically covering our total expenditures currently. That's an observation there.
Say that again, Nancy?
Our total local revenue per pupil is covering the cost of our total expenditure per pupil.
Oh.
Right.
So, I guess a concern would be the cost, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I had a question, I don't know who can answer it, but the local tax effort index, can you explain what the index in relation to what these numbers, what is that telling us in the local tax effort? Like, what should it be? Or any, I don't know who can answer it. You can answer it.
What was that?
The local tax
The lo-
effort.
So the
index.
local tax effort is what basically the taxpayers are contributing to the education of the student.
And what they do is they put positions in the state. Mike Sobel
Yeah.
did this, so A1 is a state average. That means the local taxpayers are kind of paying as much as the federal and state. And so if you're over 1, your local taxpayers are paying more. If you're under 1, there's other revenue sources.
Okay. So West She's the only one under one out of the 3 districts. And we are, well, it's almost like a jump. So we're at almost 1.5, Berkshire's almost 1, and they're almost half.
So both, I would say, is strength in looking is that both other options have a lower tax effort, local tax effort index
What does West She have going on that's creating their,
revenue.
yeah, like what other revenue streams are coming in?
We wouldn't know. It's something we could look into.
And when you look at it, if you look at West G, their local revenue, they're only contributing $9,871 per kid.
Yeah.
So that's what's putting them below the 1.
Right. And we are actually getting the most from the state. And we're still,
And it all depends on it's divided by the ADM, and it's all,
yeah.
Yeah, it's all.
there's 4 different factors.
Okay, is everybody good with that? All right, so if we've gone deep enough on that, let's move over to the handout, which is the enrollment report. Okay, so looking at the enrollment, Where do you guys see our strengths, are the strengths for our students, and where are the concerns?
Looks like Berkshire and USG have a higher capture rate, right? Kind of jumps out.
And I don't, go ahead.
I think that the overall concern, either way you look at it, everybody's declining in enrollment. You know, you go over to Berkshire, we're gonna build a nice new shiny school building. They're gonna potentially merge with us, right? Potentially. Maybe they get some lift of the kids, but the reality is they're still declining in enrollment. So that's a concern of ours. What do you think about it? Yeah, they all are, but you still gotta buy, right?
So, well, okay, so you said West G has decreased, and then Berkshire had an increase, but that would be because of ledge money, right?
Correct.
But,
So now they got ledge money in there, but they're still looking to decline, right? The only way they're going is by
Right, 'cause-
acquiring.
because their ADM, which is their total, yeah, so but that includes open enrolled kids, right? The ADM, we discovered that, but not parochial kids, is that what we decided last time? So they increased overall kids, but they only kept, the increase in the total enrollment was 12%, so they didn't keep all of the students in that transfer.
I think the concerning thing here that's jumping out for us is our ADM actually increased, right? So we have more eligible public school kids in our district right now, but we lost more kids from last year to open enrollment.
Well, because the school's closing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just
I
saying.
mean, you know, but that's the perception. I mean, you have to think about it. For the last 8 years that I've been on the board, we've been in consolidation talks, one shape or another. And, you know, not so much for the junior high and high school kids, because this has been an ongoing discussion for so long. But for elementary school kids, you want your kid to start at one school system and finish. So we're losing a lot of that elementary school kid. I mean, and if you look on this enrollment, where we're getting kids are from some of the bigger schools, Maple Heights, you know, it's not big numbers, but it's percentages. When we have open enrolled kids in, they're coming from bigger schools because of the smaller school field. A lot of them are also, I would almost, well, I think this might be an ignorant generalization, but I would say older students, junior high and high school, that are coming in. Am I correct in that assumption, or is there any way we can get
Yeah, I have.
So are you saying?
But what I'm saying is the
Concern
reason
is
that we're showing such
stability.
a dramatic decrease,
Yeah, it's skewed.
I wouldn't even say skewed, I mean, it's a matter of fact, we've been in consolidation talks, serious consolidation talks now for 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, 3 to 4 years with Berkshire, and then with West Geauga 2 years.
So I guess,
I would
So,
say-
I mean, I wouldn't say, I'm gonna tell you, if I had to do it all over again, and we were in those kind of serious discussions with a school, well, you're not gonna send your kid to a school that's gonna close.
Or you're gonna pull them if you're in.
You're gonna pull them, especially at an elementary school age. You want them to have stability.
Well, I mean, if you look, Berkshire and West Geauga is taking a large chunk, we're helping their bottom line by our open enrollment dollars following the kids. So we have to really look at that long-term solution.
Well, does that open enrollment numbers, does that also play into what we're paying per pupil? How much does that pay, you know, that 17,000? We all know that it's not apples to apples.
Yeah, I think-
We all know that it's 6,000 per student, and we're not getting that. It's our local taxpayers
maybe-
that are paying for open enrollment kids. It's not the state.
Well, our 40% decrease is showing that we are losing.
Yeah, we're
our-
losing
our-
our open enrollment.
Our kids, and open enrollment is a big factor in that, not just our consolidation, but open enrollment in general is, you know, you have to compete.
we are, what, negative 400,000 to open enrollment right now in our budget. So it stinks, but it's a reality.
How
that
much,
we're-
wait, how much are we pouring in and how much are we losing?
Maybe like 200, we got 12 coming from Sheridan.
Open enrollment negative for the year is gonna be 597, 123. Open enrollment in is gonna be 170,546.
If you repeat that louder, I think some people are trying to take notes back there, I couldn't hear you.
Open enrollment out is we're going to lose $597,123. Open enrollment in is going to be 170,546. And I can pass this.
So
If
on
you
our
wanna see that,
budget
you'll have it.
is around $8 million.
Yeah.
So that's a huge chunk of our annual budget. For whatever, obviously, I don't disagree with you. There's a lot of reasons why that is, but it's a reality we have to deal with. I think probably an interesting thing to do would be to see the historic open enrollment numbers from even open enrollment started when we were in school.
Well, I think open enrollment and our consolidation talks were similar timing. I mean, when open enrollment started is what it could have been.
Exacerbated
It
the-
could have been a trigger for us, for you guys, your board, to be doing that. And that's something that is a concern. We have open enrollment to contend with. And we're losing to the people who we're in discussions with by a large number, and we're paying a large number to those districts in the process. So I would like to see that as a concern on.
So I have for enrollment concerns, I have declining county enrollment, I have,
I would say open enrollment.
just open enrollment. Do you want specifically to those two districts?
No, I mean, yeah, it's obvious, I don't think it requires it.
And that's right at the double-edged sword. We stay open and all they have to do is open their open enrollment numbers and they take more. It's like a no-win situation here with open enrollment,
Well, there's
the
always,
small districts.
there's always a cap though in schools.
That's what I'm saying, they
They're
can
not
always,
gonna-
Right.
They're
not
hire
gonna
teachers,
overfill.
yeah.
but what I'm saying is they can always fill up to whatever their
Yeah.
decided on cap
There's
is, and they can
some
always
there.
open that cap if they need
There's
money.
nothing new.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else on the enrollment handout?
Just that I misspelled chart.
Oh, I thought
You're
that
so
was
critical.
the moon for Pluto.
And I didn't put these till noon today because I kept, in fact, if you could, I updated stuff until noon today, so.
I will say, you too, I know I personally was calling you guys with questions up until the 11th hour today, so it's awful time commitment, and I acknowledge that, and thank you for not being lazy. You really have worked I'm sure your families detest us, but we appreciate you for giving us your time, because I know this was a lot of information we asked from you.
So, moving on to handout C is the teacher pupil ratio, which is, they say TPR, I guess is the term. But basically, there's best practices, and they can have a lot of numbers, but the numbers found here are being used in the new model that's being presented to the state legislators in a new state funding proposal, and that's the Cupp-Patterson School Finance Committee recommendation, and Mike Sobel is actually on that committee. In OSBA, he did do a presentation. So anyway, that's what the best practice numbers that were used in the TPR for this.
So where it says they're at those numbers right now?
And when I talk to them, it depends how many kids are in the grade. So they have guidelines, like for primary, they try to keep them at 21 to 1, 4th, 5th grade, 24, middle school, 25. But it just depends how many kids, like I said before, if you have 32 kids in second grade, they're not gonna put 32, they're gonna go to 16. So there's no way, unless we did it grade by grade, school by school. But when I talked to them, they said those best practice numbers are kind of their guidelines. but they're in that ballpark.
So you got the impression that both schools defer to being under best practice if they had,
And I'm just calling it best practice,
Yeah.
because when I was in a former district, those would have been my guidelines.
sure.
I mean, do we know? So we're saying that, in, Berkshire and West Sheet both, regardless, they're in those numbers. So 25, 23, 20, 27, that's where they're falling.
If they go over those numbers, they'll hire another
Another
teacher.
teacher.
And then it'll go down probably based.
So they
on
could have a
ventilation.
15 and 15 if they hit third.
I mean, do we
Right.
know what the reality is there, or are we just gonna say it's best practice?
No, and I could ask them grade by grade if you'd like.
I'd be curious.
Why is there an asterisk by English?
Because for me to do every single course would have
every
been
school
crazy.
has an-
So
okay.
I just did our English numbers.
Okay.
I have all the rest with me if you want them, but.
No, that's okay, I got
It
you.
would have been huge.
I think that, are there any strengths or concerns that we want to note on this?
To run T pairs just for elementary.
Harder in high school because they're fluid, like they're
I
fluid.
think about it to the average. but-
So you guys see any strengths or weaknesses in these?
No, we have small class sizes.
So a strength
which I
for
think
learning.
that's a strength.
I'm sure we can find research that supports either case, right? So,
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna sit here and claim either way, but, I personally, for my kids, I like the smaller class sizes, you know?
I guess that's a question too, like when is it, what's the cutoff to still be effective in your mind? Do you know what I mean? Like when you get down to the fives, do you feel like that's still advantageous for the high school students?
And if I could just jump in, this is a really hard situation because you could have 30 kids and if you don't have any children with behavior issues, I think there's not a problem. Or you could have a class of 12 and it could be very challenging. You know, so it depends on, it's really hard to ever get a hard and fast number because it depends on the composition.
Well, how many classes do we have that are around 5?
Well, those are our electives. We have about 20 classes with our electives.
So when we're looking at what's best for students and what's a fiscal responsibility, I think that has to be a concern for me. When we're looking at 20 classes with 5 kids, that's a concern.
So do you want it to say classes under 5 or classes under 10 or just too many small classes in the high school or what is the, I don't know.
I would just say small class size, just like, I mean, it's the same.
Can we get a showing?
And I'm on both sides of the fence on that. We personally looked into Hershey because we liked that it was a small school. At the same point, I always have concerns if you don't have a diversity of ideas, because it's so small and you're constantly regurgitating the same ideas with the same 5 students. I ride both sides of that fence personally, just so you all know where I'm at. I think in high school that's probably too small to have real well-rounded discussion, but like I said, we also went to look at Hershey, so I get why it's a good thing too.
Yeah, I'm just curious on Berkshire and West Sheet side, if they've got elective classes that have, sizes 5 to 10, something like that.
I'm guessing not. In my former district, we didn't run a class plus 15.
Okay,
So I'm guessing
They had a
it's
minimum.
similar, but I don't know that for a fact.
okay.
Oh, is that what you wanted the second board for? Follow-up questions?
No, actually, it was for, like, if we got off topic, it was just for like.
Table
put some-
discussions.
Yes, okay, to revisit, but I think whoever's gonna be following up is making note of what they're following up with, I assume.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm assuming that was better, or has that been in anywhere you go? 15 has been kind of,
And it's not that you deny kids, you just find another elective and
Right.
sit down and talk to them. Right. I
Just
think that's
for the-
probably a standard practice.
Yeah, I don't think it's fiscally responsible to have,
I mean, if you're gonna have one or
5 in a
a
class,
couple,
that's-
like if if it's a few, or if we're in elementary and we want to keep, you know, but if it's 20 classes with that few students, you know, that's what the number is, seems excessive. Anything else for the TPR? All right, moving on to handout D, which is the academics. This handout shows the graduation requirements and the course offerings offered in all the schools. And at the end, you can see the career tech opportunities are listed. And then we can open it up for whatever you guys kind of noticed as observations.
And there are a few changes from what I sent you last week, because I sent this information to both districts for them to double check my work. And so, for instance, they didn't have gymnastics on West G's website, but, so they filled in a few more things that if you looked at it last week, like I said, it was updated up until noon today. So this should be accurate.
Berkshire has a ton of journalism classes. Is there, do they have like a program for intro to, like a fast track AP course to journalism or something? Or they just, that was an interest of teachers, so they just have a lot of journalism courses?
Or it could have been interesting.
Do you know, if I remember
Students.
correctly, like the first journalism is like for sophomore, the second one is for junior, and then when they're a senior, they're editorial. I'm making that up, but I think it's by grade level.
We're looking at the requirements for graduation that are all the same for all districts, so that's, you know, equal across the board.
No, somebody at Berkshire has community service.
The credits are the same,
But the credits are the
electives
same.
are a little bit different.
Right, the credits are the same classes. I saw some remediation courses in English for West G. So is that just telling us that they're identifying like weak areas and they're remediating them sooner? Is that what those courses would be for?
My assumption is if they failed English 9, then they probably take the English 9 remediation during the summer to recover the credit.
Okay. Anybody want to discuss the AP course offerings? I mean, I know we've talked about this probably to death in the past year, but I know we all have different thoughts on the value of those, but if we're looking at numbers, you can see both districts offer a significant amount more. Those are in the highlighted colors.
Yeah, I was actually surprised at how many Berkshire have.
Well, you also have to, you have to think of the gifted kids as well. I mean, you gotta give them something to do, otherwise it's gonna be boring for them.
So strengths.
But aren't a lot of the gifted kids going on to their college, you know, going on to Lakeland, going on and, you know, they're not staying here. And that's one of the things with our high school that's sort of, you know, a little bit different, because I know we have looked in the past at AP courses, but a lot of the kids that those AP courses would have been offered to, they're going to Lakeland or they're going to Kent. They're going for, you know what I mean? So they're going to get college credits for that, so they can get their associate's degree.
With the CPS is a strength for
That is for all.
I mean, it's just a little more, I get it, but it's a little less traditional than when we were in school, because when we were in school, if you were a gifted student, you couldn't go to college classes, you took an AP class.
But some would argue if you're gifted, if you have a gifted child, or if we have a high population of them, then they're having to leave campus and outsource that
But-
education. Or they could, if we could educate them in-house, it would be a cost savings, but it'd also be an enrichment for their,
Here's the other.
It's an enrichment for the parents down the road, because we're paying for their college credit. So, I mean, it's still, and that's where,
And I think
you know, and I had the same situation with my oldest son. It's like, do you keep him at Newbury? He was, I guess you'd say gifted, I don't know, I'm still trying to see it. But, But, you know, that was a situation with him that,
Well,
you know,
I
do you
think-
go on to College Credit Plus or do you stay here?
I think it's a philosophy, it's a familial philosophy depending on what type of higher learning institution your child is striving for.
But it also
If you're
is offered
striving-
at each district, like
Yeah, every
CCP,
district offers
The CCP, they could access that CCP in any district.
It's
The
a state
AP course
mandate.
offerings is something that's different that we can't offer at the same level here as the other districts are.
Certain colleges are looking specifically, there's a higher order thinking that goes with AP course offerings than with your college 101s. And if your family is striving for a certain type of college, you need to have those under your belt. But the CCP is a state mandate. Everybody who is in
Right.
high school can take CCP, no
But I
matter what
thought,
school they're at.
and maybe I was given misinformation, but that the AP courses are not being weighted as heavily
You
as
take
they were.
a test.
Well, I'd like actually for Jackie to speak to that, if you can, if you don't know if AP, just because she's the curriculum expert, if there's something that would say that this is CCP, well, I would think she is.
More so than the rest.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, AP course offering versus CCP, is there some type of curriculum difference there? I mean, if we don't know, maybe we, need to know.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's values.
Okay.
I don't know how to, I don't really want to weigh in on some of the values.
Sure. It's like this, what type of
I
special?
mean, obviously, these other districts have kids taking these courses.
Oh, yeah, it's
Also-
a familial
Obviously.
preference.
Yeah.
It's depending on what type of thinking skills you're pushing your children for. And in my opinion, as
But in the other, even if you don't value them,
it's available if your
it's
child.
available if you do want some. So I would say a strength is, potentially could be that we would have families that
This is kind
could.
of confusing because it's for.
Well, you can, do whatever it's easier for you to be able to note it.
I'd be curious to know too, enrollment, so they've got a ton of AP classes.
Are they gonna take-
What's enrollment look like in those classes? Are we down to 5 kids in a class in AP, for example?
And are they even, how often are they really being offered?
Well,
Are they even having a course every year?
Yeah, I mean, we could say you have it, and you have the ability, you've got a teacher there to teach it, but are you teaching it? Is there a class?
There's a test.
No, he's saying, I'm sorry if I'm
Yeah,
putting words in your mouth. I
no,
think
it's-
it's, we have the ability to teach it, but are you actually
Like, are we
taking?
holding a class this 9 weeks or this block, or, yeah, I see all these, but literally, we have an AP psychology and a macroeconomics, and are they active? Like,
Okay.
we've got teachers in the building that can teach this stuff, but
Yeah,
they may
right.
not be teaching it.
It might not
because
have been taught for
Not
5
enough
years.
kids to fill a classroom. So, on paper, looks great, right? Yeah, thank you.
So can you explain exactly what the capstone is? I thought that was the senior project. Is that not the senior project?
Yeah, last year, the state put in some alternate pathways to graduation, and one of them was the capstone project. So we, to cover our bases and be proactive, made a capstone class, which is a senior preparatory class for, that our seniors can take. Most of our seniors who don't take college prep do take the capstone project. It's they do a project, that's part of their class, but the rest of the class, a lot is like preparation, how to apply for college, a lot of information about student loans, college loans, et cetera, et cetera.
Life skills, kind of
Life skills, this week, they're talking, this week's topic is college debt, and college loans, what it means when it's a subsidized loan, what it means when it's a non-subsidized loan. It's a lot of, it's our second year teaching it. Mrs. McFadden teaches it. She's in business and technology. Feedback for our 2 years has been very positive. We have about, I think this year we have about 15 kids in it. Last year I think we might have a few more.
So would you say, typically speaking, if they're taking that course, they eventually also take the, was it an SAT course I saw?
The ACT course is, the ACT course is separate. We also do some ACT prep during Black Night time, which is our flex time at the end of the day. It's not an actual class, but our kids can take ACT prep during that. We choose to do that also. The problem with offering a straight ACT class is kids not take the ACT at so many different times during the course of the year that, for example, if we put a class in, a straight class in for the ACT, and the kids take the ACT September 23rd, then they have the rest of the semester
So they have to do
that they've
like a
already
sophomore
taken, in the test. So there's, you know, the ACT is changing a little bit because starting last year, the year before, all of your juniors have to take it. So a lot of that's now being incorporated into regular classroom instruction also.
So the ACT
The
course is not
ACT
really
prep
being used?
that's one of our optional classes that we have to handle.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, the Career Tech Auburn is at Berkshire and Newbury. So depending on, what you value, Auburn, I've heard nothing but obviously Terry reports on that. It's always really good reports, and it seems to be that our students that are utilizing the program are very happy there.
Yes.
So that's, a strength for those two options, I guess. And that, but it was interesting because I've heard, good and bad things about both, but it was good to see them compared in curriculum right next to each other. It seems like they're offering pretty much the same programming. I think the only added one was like travel and hotel management, tourism for the Excel Tech, but that was a really interesting thing to see next to each other. So thank you for putting that together.
Well, what we do at Auburn is we look over our curriculum and decide what businesses in the area need. And then we add or subtract accordingly.
So I guess I have a question. We have current students, so if we were to make a decision to go to West G, since the Career Tech programs are different for those kids that are in the program now, what does that transition look like? Would they have to hop over to the Excel Tech and leave their program, or would they be able to finish their program?
When I asked West G about that, they said they would try to work with Auburn to see if the kids could finish the kids that already started.
I know at one time, the first time we talked to West Yaga about consolidation or merger, they had said basically what they were going to do is the kids in the program were going to stay in the program and finish out. It helps out, I believe, this was a long time ago, that it helps out money-wise for Auburn because also, and it's fair. It's more fair. But the new kids coming up would transfer over. They would come up through Excel. That's what we had worked on last time. That's what was brought up last time we went down this path.
Our iSTEM program is housed at Auburn. It's Auburn. So and that's for Geauga County iSTEM is, right? So does West G utilize would use Auburn for their iSTEM program?
The Auburn and ISTEM are two different entities. They have
Well,
their
yeah,
own
that's what I'm saying.
superintendent.
So they would be physically at Auburn if the child at West G uses iSTEM.
You're asking, do they have a different ISTEM program?
Yeah. it's a county service, it's a county educational service, the ISTEM, right?
Our superintendent is a former Newbury principal.
Yeah, so I don't know what number of kids we're talking about, but it would be interesting.
Michael, it's about 8.
ISTEM's a public charter, so students can go to and from really anywhere that they want to go through. It's a public charter sponsored by the Jockey ESC, housed at Auburn. So there's not, I don't believe there's district limitations as to who can go to ISTEM any more than who can go to any other charter school.
Do we have about 8 kids there?
I believe we started with 6 freshmen this year with 1 who's returned. Over the last few years, we've had a couple return. This year's freshman was the highest number to go. I think they expanded how many kids they take.
Thank you.
Any other observation with academics, concerns, or strengths or opportunities that you can identify?
Shuffle too much. I mean, the amount, it jumps off the page how much West Geogga is offering. I was surprised, I didn't expect to see as many AP courses as Berkshire had, because I know even a year ago they didn't have a fraction of that.
Less, they had a good number of AP courses before, and they also had a lot of electives. They had a lot of electives before also Berkshire did. This is pretty much right in line with where they were 4 years ago, as far as what they offered. It hasn't changed too much. It's grown a little bit because they had more students. They've added.
Okay, if we're all done with the academics, we can move on to handout E, which is the state report cards. We've looked at this. Dr. Coins did a presentation on our report card and compared it to similar districts, not our peers. So this is our interesting thing to see it side by side with our peers and the ones that we're evaluating. So open up the conversation for anyone who'd like to
When
comment.
it says ACT participation, is there a success rate that goes along with that? So it seems like obviously West G's got a lot more going, but are they all being successful? Like, is there a way to see that?
Well, is this
Define
AT?
success.
Is this?
Yeah, that was a difficult
Is
thing.
ACT participation, is that before it became mandatory? Is that what they're talking about?
Maybe Michael can help.
It would not have been mandatory for, those numbers are for last year's graduating class. It would not have been mandatory for last year's graduating class.
Thank you.
It's just the amount of kids that actually took the test.
I believe so. I'm just guessing for ours, that sounds about right. About half of our graduating students last year took these.
Just, yeah, okay.
That's like what my question was. Industry recognized credential, what is,
Those are kids in career tech.
okay.
Last time, when you first showed us the report card, one of the things that you believed that we were extremely close with a few tweaks to getting a B. That it's not out of the realm because, as you said, there were some real positive, there were some positives, and because of our small number, that do you still feel that way after being here a little bit?
I don't think we're close to getting a B in overall. I said in indicators met.
Indicators met? Okay.
Indicators met is the percentage of kids that pass each test. And because of our small numbers,
Right.
maybe one more kid would have passed in a couple. And then I really think that one, we could have bumped up to at least a B on that.
Just another tool. I don't put much weight on state testing, to be honest with you. just don't know.
That's
I know,
exactly,
I
it's
know.
one way to look at it.
That's a little bit.
I agree.
What is the dual enrollment credit?
That's the CCP, the kids that are getting college credit. And Michael and I talked about this afternoon, and we believe that number is incorrect. We probably should have gone to the state with, because we know we have a number of kids. So this is what the state reported. We probably should protest or.
Well,
The question I
how
have-
how did that get missed to 0%?
Well,
It could be.
well, okay, speak on this. That was under the Prepare for Success.
Right.
And it's one of those, and I'll take responsibility for it. I should have seen that. Because our actual numbers, not figure our actual numbers in second, are significantly different than 0%. But at the time, because Prepare for Success was a new indicator this year, it was the first time that it came out. And there was a place in it where you've got 0.3 points for every kid that had, for every senior that had at least 3 semester hours. And we had a score over there, and that's the one that I saw. And then today was actually the first time I'd actually seen a separate. If you look at the report card, there's like a drop down on this side, then there's a list on this side. I did go back and check the numbers for last year's graduating class. We actually had 11 kids with college credit plus, which would be a full enrollment of 25%.
I guess the
So-
question is are they meaning that they actually transferred them to did they actually transfer to an ongoing school after that year is the question. Is that what that's trying to say?
Oh, for dual credit, if you attend a school in Ohio, if you take college credit plus, if you go to a school in Ohio, they have to recognize those hours, public or private.
But you have to go to college.
Yeah.
Right, I'm saying maybe if they didn't continue on or they didn't apply.
No, I'm guessing it might be an EMIS error.
Yeah, it was probably some kind of error in, if I were guessing, it could have been either an EMIS error or somehow we reported it to or hit a button here or there in Infinite Campus or LGCA. Because it was recorded, we got credit in part of it, we just didn't get credit in the other part.
Would that have changed our Prepare for Success?
I don't
rate?
think so. I don't think so. It's, when we have a lot of time, I kind of go deeper into Prepare for Success. There's some, fundamentally, we have to change a lot of things. That, for example, industry recognized credentials, those are, let's move on.
If you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind hearing those.
Put it
If
in
you
the
would
parking lot.
Put, if you would put something together and have a meeting for us, I would like to hear.
It's an indicator that is very much geared to larger schools. Smaller schools struggled on that indicator.
So for the AP placement, do they mean people who tested or people who just took the course?
I'll find that out for you, I'm not sure.
Okay.
My guess would be it's number of people who took the course.
Fine, okay, so we need, that's my question, I guess, is to find out if the AP placement is who actually tested or who took the course.
I'll get that.
Okay.
So we have a significant amount more people participating in the ACT in West G and a little more in Berkshire. And the industry recognized credential is higher in Berkshire. And the AP placement is significantly higher in West G, but almost triple what ours is in Berkshire. So that just, looking at some
And you're-
observations there.
You're assuming that we're really at 25% for the dual credit.
It was, yeah, that's the number of kids that, last year we had 11 seniors, 6 juniors, and a 9th grader. This year we have 9 seniors, 3 juniors, and a 10th grader taking college grade plus classes.
Honors, diploma, just, okay. Oh, pros and cons, sorry. What do you guys want?
The report card is, obviously West G has the best report card. And whether you value the report card or not, it is better, and it is, puts them in good standings in the state ranking for education based on their report card.
And they're
obviously.
ranked what?
It's 26th.
She hears that every time she comes.
They're good at teaching to the test, right?
Well, or it could be argued that they are preparing their students for success.
We've closed our gap pretty well too. What's this gap closing line speak to?
The gap closing is looking at the more vulnerable populations or subgroups that struggle. They look at our progress and put it against all the kids in the state in that same subgroup. And there's a certain percentage that you have to get to, and we surpass that percentage in all the subgroups.
Going back to the 5-year forecast, and then when you look again at the graduation rates, my main concern is if such a large percentage of our kids are not prepared or on track to graduate, I don't think most people in the community would mind paying the price that we're paying to educate, since we are so much more expensive, if our kids were on track. But when you look at this and see that we have a C for graduation rate, and then it was, how many percentage are off track right now to graduate? Do you remember from the 5-year forecast?
I think, Mike, when I talked at the beginning of the year, we had 10 or 11. I'm not sure where we're at now.
We're addressing that. We're confident that moving forward. Last year's, our graduation score for next year's report card will be 100% for evaluations versus last year's graduating class.
Then you picked up the ones that didn't graduate, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So they'll be graduating their 5th year at 100%.
Our 4-year for next year on the report card.
4-year for next year.
Those are year
Okay,
behind.
what about the ones that are in their 5th year now? What are you looking at for those?
Well, a couple of kids, and just an example, a student moved here his junior year, Warren G. Harding, and didn't graduate on time. So he dinged us on both years. So we went down, with 40 kids, we went down to 2.5%.
Sure,
for
but
him. The kids who start and finish with us were almost 100%.
start, finish high school, or start, finish
Start to
elementary?
finish high school.
So are you suggesting that that we limit our open enrollments?
No, I think it's, I think you'll see, in a small school, you're going to see more fluctuation in graduation rate than a big school, because if we have 2 or 3 kids that don't graduate, that's 10% of our class.
Sure, I think the concern is when there's years that should be an anomaly, there's just some kids that you're not going to be able to get to, and I get that.
Sure.
But when it's consistent year to year, that 3, 4, 5 aren't graduating, I think that's the concern. Because with the numbers, with 5 in a class, 20 classes with 5 or less, you shouldn't have 5 not graduating regularly, I think is the concern.
Again, I'd be happy to give you a little presentation on who those 5 are, because some of those kids are in prison, some of those kids are. No, I'm serious.
Well, no, I know you are.
Those are kids who are in our pool.
And then Mrs. Matthews, I also want to be fair, like the classes that have less than 5 are electives. You know, if you look at our teacher-pupil ratio for English, they're not at 5. So I just want to make sure that, that's.
Right, if you're looking at the graduation credits.
If you're looking at
you're looking
graduation
at
credits,
English.
our main discipline classes aren't. I just want to
Sure.
make sure that's.
So, but our average ratio was 7 to 1 in the high school, junior high.
If you take the whole school combined.
For me, that's a concern, is
Yeah, go ahead and write that down.
class size versus
Or the report card.
on track to graduate.
What's the students with disabilities? So you've got Berkshire with an F sitting there.
Okay, that's under progress, and what they do is they look at kids individually progress from where they were the year before. If you get a C, the child has made 1 year's growth.
Okay.
So with our students with disabilities, they actually made more than a year's growth. And if you look at the F, that means they made less than a year's growth for kids with disabilities.
Yeah, we'll put value into this report card, and that speaks volumes right there. Considering our percent of disabilities is significantly higher than everybody else.
So you want, well, West Jesus higher.
Well, she's sorry, yeah.
What do you want to
Sorry.
up there? I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't need to put anything up there, I'm just making it, I'm just calling it out.
It's enough. Anybody else?
And I actually would give credit to the report card there because our intervention specialists work very, very hard with our kids for them to get more than a year's worth.
I believe it. No doubt.
Anything else?
You want me to put students with disabilities report card in the
I
district?
don't know what you can put out, just making an observation that
Yeah.
if we're looking
Yeah,
at
let's
burden.
put it on. So you want you want me to say Newbury and West G strength is students with disabilities?
Absolutely.
Anything else on the report card? We're chugging along. Marty's still with us. He's down in halls pretty aggressively. Okay.
I use real germaphobe, so give her a good handshake before we leave tonight.
Okay, going on to handout F, which is the sports and clubs. Any generalities of strengths and weaknesses here?
What is our percentage of student participation as far as with extracurriculars?
Oh, there he is. Look at him.
Can you clarify, I mean, like of our total student body?
Yeah, for total student body, a lot of times schools look at it and they say, well, we're getting 23% of our kids doing extracurriculars, being involved in the school, being involved in the community by being involved in the school. How is our percentage of total student body being?
I think we ran
we
a
all know
number.
that because we're so small and because we offer pretty much all the same that everybody else does, the bigger schools, we know that we're getting dual participation. So I'm sure our percentages are a problem.
I would say, I think the last time we did the numbers last year was 70 or 80% of the total student body that participates in
Which is phenomenal.
extracurricular.
Yeah, that's
No,
okay.
it's, and then you look at also, I mean, several students participate in multiple sports and multiple extracurriculars.
What'd you say the percent was?
I think it was 75 or 80% last time we did the numbers. I'd have to look, I don't have that tonight.
Can we get the numbers from the other districts, I guess, if that's so you want to make sure that whatever iteration
Well,
of
what
us
happens
is, that
is-
it's an involved community of kids.
Yeah.
Well, there's opportunity there for them to do things that maybe they wouldn't be able to do in a bigger school.
I'm
Right.
let's say,
In
I'm
terms of playing
surprised
sport.
Berkshire's the only one with boys and girls soccer.
I wouldn't say that Newbury offers.
No, West Street has boys and girls.
Oh, they don't have it listed as well.
I wouldn't say Newbury has all of the same offerings as, I would disagree. I would say the sports and clubs are heavier in the other districts. But like you said, I think what you were pointing to is we may have more participation. The kids that are playing are able to participate more, and they're able to do multiple sports.
You know, and it's always been that argument too, that more clubs water down more sports. I mean, when we were in school, and I'll use the sport that I know the best is wrestling. You had a freshman team, you had a JV team, and you had a full varsity team. Nowadays, at the same school I went to, Kenston, they barely have a freshman team, and they have big numbers. But they also offer hockey, lacrosse, badminton, whatever else is out
Because
there.
different kids are interested in different things.
Yeah, but I don't think that's always good. It's not competitive. You know, it's not great. I like basket weaving. I'm going to offer that sport next week.
That's not a sport.
Well, but you know, I'm going to offer that crap.
Real
If it's
fast.
competitive,
Timing.
yes, it is. But you know what I'm saying? I get, you know, sometimes more is better, and even we looked at lacrosse. As a board, we had somebody come to us 3 years ago and say, would you offer? Well, no, it would decimate the baseball program. It's played at the same time.
Do you think that not offering those probably weighs into
No,
some
I
of
mean,
our
I don't know if it's a
enrollment
strength or
losses,
weakness.
though?
I'm just saying that now, you know, and then with declining enrollment hitting all of us, still at this point, it doesn't matter if, say we merge with West Geauga, well, they have to keep having declining enrollment. Eventually, those sports are gonna fall off anyways, due to popularity. I mean, you can offer everything in the world, but, you know,
This has clubs and sports, so some of these I assume are not at the same time. I'm sure some of these kids are doing dual. I guess the important thing there would be to find out how many kids are dual club, right? And then what percentage.
and I mean, it's just an observation. You see a lot of different things that are offered.
So I would say,
But I don't
Both
care
have the
what,
same strength and weakness.
I don't care what's offered, it's student participation. You can offer everything in the world. If you're only getting 15 to 25% at a big school that's participating, that to me is a fail. Because you're not getting, you know, this should be someone in the center there, whether it's, I mean, I don't care if it's football, basketball, or drama, or band, those are just as important. And we have kids that are participating in drama that normally would not be at a bigger school because they're getting pushed into it. The drama teacher, or the drama director's seeing it. Yet in that number, that 70 to 80%, that's a good number of participation. I want to see what the other two districts, what the student participation is. And it doesn't have to be sports, it can be everything.
I think this same, yes, I'd like to know that kids are being pushed and promoted into those things. Fine arts are particularly important to me. The fact that I see an academic decathlon. What is an envirothon? Was Berkshire the only one that had that? What was the envirothon?
What she does too.
I saw it on both, yeah.
I'm guessing.
I can
Oh,
handle
it
that
is.
one if you want.
Oh, yes.
Envirothon is it's like a one-day competition that schools go to. Sometimes they have clubs, and you go, we had Envirothon in Wyndham. The kids would go one day and they would do stream testing and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it
So
wasn't,
it's a science
it wasn't a big
environment.
prolonged sport thing or an event thing. It was usually the biology and chemistry class went to Envirothon.
I do see, when you see things like the chess club and stuff like that, I've got 3 boys. I have signed up my boys for every sport they've been allowed to. I have one boy that quits every single sport and cries every single day. So seeing stuff like that for the ones that just do not enjoy those team sports, that is exciting to me.
Well, I'd like to talk about where they're competing too. I mean, the distance that we're traveling to compete with schools our size is lengthy in some areas too. And if you're looking at competition, we're looking at conferences that you potentially may have cuts on your team, so you are competing to make the team, and if you're not on that team, then you're accessing the other athletics that are available that could be challenging a different skill set or a different area that you could develop yourself. So I think that the offerings might be
negative or a concern
Marty.
for Marty, but I think it could be a strength.
I will, to that point too, I will say, I know I did both volleyball and soccer growing up. When it got time to be in high school, junior high was fine playing on the guys' team. In high school, I personally, now my sister wasn't, she played boys, she was, I think, the first girl in Newbury to play in girls soccer, her and Vicki Wallbauer.
We too, the first year it started in '88.
Okay.
88. It was the class of 86.
I was around, so I know.
So Roya and Vicki were completely comfortable playing men's sports, but I was too embarrassed at that age, at that point for me, so I gave up on soccer because there wasn't a girls program offered. So, and I guess the question is, do we have enough kids for soccer and football even in the next couple years? Maybe you can, I know there was a concern about a football team maybe next year. Where are we at with football and soccer? Because those are the ones that take bigger numbers of kids.
I haven't started signups yet to see who's interested, so I can't really speak since the season pretty much just ended.
Was there a junior high team this year?
No, we haven't had a junior high football team since I've been here. Marty,
Mac's team was the last junior high team. We still had a Pee Wee. We still had Pee Wee leagues.
many teams many schools are finding it hard to field a junior high team, even bigger schools. I know that I know somebody from, I think it was Solon, who was having a hard time fielding a junior high football team. Because of the interest, because of the concussion concern.
So do you see that as a waning sport in general, that we should not be putting much emphasis on?
No, I frankly, I think football, you have marching band, there's a lot of pluses. Friday night football is big in communities. I think whenever possible, a school should try to have a football team.
So I'm not saying not try for one, I'm saying in your professional opinion, do you see the amount of football teams in general starting to decrease in the near future because there's no junior high teams coming up?
I think that you're always going to have schools that are struggling to field football teams, especially at junior high level, because the kids they're younger. Parents are more concerned these days about concussions. But I can't really say speak to the future. I can't tell.
So with your wrestling numbers, with head concussions, have you seen a change in the pace?
We have, believe it or not,
I know this from you, like, go ahead.
we have the least amount of concussions as a sport. You never know that by talking to a lot of wrestlers. We have a lot. We don't, because you're on a soft mat.
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
concussions, but I would say in the 12 years I've been coaching here, we've only had 2.
And if your numbers you've actually bolstered your numbers in the last few
Yeah,
years.
our numbers stay pretty consistent. Now, once we get everybody through their academic valleys and mountains and everything else, we'll probably be missing 3 weight classes. Well, wrestling's different. It's an individual sport. It's a team sport. I mean, we love doing well as a team, but it's, their schools, Ledgmont and Hawken, or Ledgmont and some of the other schools, Fairport Harbor, for years only had 2 kids on their team. And, Ledgmont had 4.
I know in the beginning of the year, we asked for a list of individualized sports that you could start pursuing or looking into for us in case our team sports numbers continue to drop. Have you had opportunity to get that together for us?
I don't remember you asking that.
Sure, it was at one of the meetings. I can get the date for you, but,
Okay.
I mean, obviously,
Can you tell me what you mean by individualized sports?
we asked for, when we were asking.
No, I'm asking
Sure.
what you mean by
I would say
individualized
that
sports.
I think this might be an
Table.
appropriate, yeah, I think we're getting a little too off, and if something needs to be researched, then Jackie can talk with her team and get that for us.
I have a question. I see that Berkshire and West Yarra have academic challenge, but we have academic competition. What does that mean?
We compete services, because we were at nationals 3 years in a row, I believe. It's like Academic Challenge, the TV show. You have three teams that all get together, if I remember correctly. And they buzz in, and it's points. I think Newbury came in 8th nationally one year. Yeah.
Smack was 8.
Oh, no, okay. Really? He must get his springs from his mother. Yeah.
Terry, I can help you with that if you want. We're actually in a league for academic team. We're in the Portage County League where we play against a lot of schools.
Okay.
Where a lot of times academic challenges like Channel 5.
Right,
Or
yeah,
bigger
yeah.
tournaments like that. We actually have a regular league schedule where I think we play 10 or 11 matches, and there's tournaments, and you can qualify for, we've qualified every year except last year for the national tournament. It's been in, I think Mr. Fortney went to Atlanta, it's been in Chicago a couple of times, it's been in Minnesota. It's just a different, it's the same concept, but it's like different organizations that people play in.
Okay.
The athletic conference, or?
Yeah, kind of like ours are more like one-on-one matches till it gets to like the national. It's a gigantic tournament.
All right, I think we should move on with the next. I think we've stayed in sports and clubs for a good amount of time. And I think we should move on to handout G, which is the miscellaneous. And this kind of, I know we've talked about some of these, but I think it be good to recap. The first section is talking about the facilities. Are you guys good with going through each one individually, or do you guys want to talk about this as a whole, this handout? All right, if no preference, we'll just, with the facilities first. Obviously, you know, if you're alive, you know that the Prime initiative has passed, and that Berkshire's planning to open their new buildings, and Jackie has spoken with both of them because they both have facilities plans, and they're summarized here in the handout. Anybody have any discussion that you'd like to offer for these?
Sounds like they're obviously shifting to CCP a little bit more heavily, since they're gonna be sitting on
Berkshire.
college campus, yeah.
That they're actually going to be training their teachers to do it right in the school.
Now, what's that? What does that do to AP courses? Are they going to still offer as many AP courses once you start with the CCP?
It's 5 months ago.
And do the timing of the building being built, do we have any specifics on the timing? I know August of 2021.
They want to open their 21 school year with the new build. And they initially said, and it's probably in here, high school and junior high, or just the high school has room for us now? At one
No,
point,
I think that had, if it's okay to speak, I think that's changed from the beginning of the conversation. I think most recently we've discussed in the ESC meeting that they would be able to house all of our children K through 12
in their current facilities?
in their current facilities.
Oh.
I don't have specifics on how that would be achieved, but I just know that that was what was stated.
Cindy, yes.
Excuse me. And looking at West G, they have a master plan to upgrade their facilities. And I assume that what Mrs. Sustar was discussing with potential bond, they don't have anything specific that they've submitted, and there's no, there would be no way for us to be able to plan on what that number would be. So I guess I would say concerns in both of those are, you know,
the unknowns of what those projects look like. But the positive, I would say the strength in both of them is that they're headed in a really positive direction educationally in their districts.
So facility unknowns is a concern.
Yeah, the timing, the cost, you know, they're not complete, they're in process. So there's unknowns in those processes, but I would say that overall it's positive.
They do both have plans
Yeah.
for the future, yeah.
Marty, in the past, you've talked about your concerns with some of the building process, just that's your line of work, but.
Well, my biggest concerns are that, you know, for that August 21st deadline, they're not real far along in their planning at all. You know, they still have water issues, they still have sewer issues. They just I think it was a Geauga Maple Leaf just recently, they were talking about colors and, you know, design of the building and that stuff. You know, they should really be having that stuff nailed down. For a facility of that size, you're looking at a couple-year build project. And, you know, to get all that.
So you'd like to see more of a concrete plan, not an
Yeah.
assumed plan?
Because the other thing is that plan's going to, with the more concrete plan, you also get real costs. You know, my biggest fear of this is that we're being wooed into a relationship to help cover costs. And I don't like that, because it comes out of our taxpayers, especially with earned incomes and property tax and stuff like that. That's, you know, that to me is unfair. You know, and that's why I've often said, you know, sure, if you want, let them build it, let them figure it out, get it built, and then we'll come in. They still get a gain. And, you know, and with declining enrollment, it's not like, oh, here comes our 400 students and we flood them over and they need to build a new addition. You know, I think there's a lot, with any construction, there's always costs to that. And there's a lot of unforeseen costs. And to build a facility of the size they're gonna have, you know, I've always said I believe what, you know, I give them a lot of credit. They passed prime, they got the bond issue, they did a great job. I think it's undervalued.
So would it be fair to request maybe a more specific timeline of the project so that we can see how far along they are?
Well, I have a couple concerns. A, they say they can house all their students in their facility. Well, in their facilities now, does that mean our elementary school kids? I mean, they have trailers right now at their elementary school housing students. Does that mean, okay, we can have a facility, but they also have Ledgmont Thompson Elementary School. I don't want to see our kids bust out to Thompson or Newbury. So, I mean, I want to.
Twofold. Do you want like a better transition plan for our kids?
Yeah, I want a better transition plan for our kids, and then, you know, if this building's not going to be built.
These are both just for prep, right?
Concerns.
Just concerns.
Transition.
So some transparency in terms of what that would look like. That's kind of where my mind goes with that.
How far are kids being bused if they're gonna?
Yeah, what's that, if you're saying you can house our students, where are they going?
Where are they going? I think it's a fair enough question to ask.
He said they would not go much.
Oh, he did, okay.
Okay, so you already got that answer, so do you want? Okay, so I have, for concerns for prime, I have more concrete plan for the building is needing and a more concrete transition plan. Is that capturing it?
But I mean, for both of them, I mean, I guess from what we have as transition plans.
And do they have a specific percent over budget that that they anticipate this project could run? I mean, Marty, you know.
State
but-
mandated that get built in, didn't they?
I don't know.
I could be wrong, but I thought I heard that
There's
in one
always
of the
a
articles.
contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your question?
Whether or not they had a specific percent overage on the bill, that if it were to go over budget, you know, is it 10, is it 20, what's that look like?
What's the?
Yeah. Not for the indoor pool. Polo field.
So any other?
Do we have, transition plan is next, so.
Yeah, so before we leave facilities, because I know that that's been a real, popular topic among our community, among our board. So I just want to make sure that we're, if there's anything that we need to follow up on, that this is the time that we're identifying those, so that we're prepared to have those more detailed discussions.
When do they plan on breaking ground on this? Did they say, like, is that in there as
The
well?
last time we spoke, they were meeting, they're meeting with their architect. I don't know how.
In order to get it in by August 2021, they have to have a definitive, like, this is drop dead, we gotta start by X date, I would imagine. They have to have that in there. That's gotta be part of the plan.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Water and sewer, I think Marty has mentioned a few times, not just tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to just see what the plan is, how they're gonna spread out that cost. Because, sometimes the famous thing is to throw it in, when you have so many, there's, I believe, 3 different entities that are gonna be involved with that, so.
Cost for water and sewer.
Water, sewer, who's picking it up, are they splitting it? Or is it gonna be all put on the school shoulders?
Anything else with facilities that you guys are concerned or even a strength? I mean, good thing
Well,
ours.
ours too. We have to figure out, if our enrollment were to keep shrinking, we'd need to start shutting down wings of our school, and we would need to see a plan or something, whatever the plan is to account for our diminishing enrollment, if we are staying open.
Yeah, and the enrollment is forecasted to continue to decrease, so we would have to talk about
I
that.
think as long as we're in consolidation talks, of course, that's an no-brainer. But
Yeah,
honestly,
and I
I
think-
mean, I think if you do something that is new and you start getting kids back from some of these other schools, if you do something that is innovative and new, or show that you're gonna be here and stability, you're gonna get some of those students back.
But I have a historical timeline that from way back. And we've been having this conversation with West G and Berkshire since the 40s. So, and our enrollment has declined since then. So
Yeah,
I'm
but
not gonna.
how many times have the boards gotten together and had these discussions?
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think
This is the,
we're
I mean,
at
the
a
last 8
we have a low
years.
number that we have to make sure that we're not affecting education. And that's what we're all here to talk about. I don't want to go, I feel it as a trigger, and I didn't mean for that. I'm just saying it could be many factors. And I certainly agree with you that consolidation isn't helping. I just don't know if that's the sole issue. And I don't know that any of us can stand here and say what the exact, and point to one exact cause or reason. But the reality is that it is where we are. And we have to have these discussions to figure out how we're going to move forward for that long-term solution that we're looking for.
No matter what, we're gonna move forward, but you still have to hedge your bets, that we still have to have a plan in place that if West Yaga or Berkshire or both of them decide to walk away, that we still are educated.
Absolutely.
And
We're all committed to that.
And that is, and that we're educating, our state report card, granted, I'm not a huge proponent of them, but it's going up. It's going in the right direction. We're going in the right direction. So many times all we hear is negatives. Whether it's grade-wise, we just graduated the last few years, some classes that the kids are doing some extraordinary things. And, you know, it's easy to sit there and tear down. And it's easy to sit here and tear down the school system. It really takes some effort and some work to build it up. And it takes a little time, and, you know, you have to dig a little. But there's a lot of great things going on here too. Yes, when you compare us to someone like West Geauga, yes, their report card looks better. Their facilities are newer. You know, it's a great thing. Now you compare us to a school that's, and I mean, you know, Berkshire's bigger than we are, but their report card looks a lot.
Everybody's bigger than we
Yeah, but their report card looks pretty similar to ours.
are, you know.
So, you know, we're not doing a bad job. We have kids that are doing extremely well, and we have kids that are falling off. Where it hits us more is because we have such a small number of kids. We have 1, 2, 3, 10, 4. That, percentage-wise, yeah, if you're talking percentage, yeah, it looks bad.
Any other comments on the facilities? All right, special ed, I think we talked about this a little bit, but in looking at both districts, I think what Jackie presented here is that both Berkshire and West G are the same in the fact that they offer the STARS program and the Jaga Achieve and all of those other programs. She did state that the West G doesn't have the ED unit because their philosophy is to have co-teaching rather than pulling students out. So that was noted in here. And then, yeah, it breaks it down to describe their philosophy a little bit more. Any strengths or concerns there? Everybody comfortable with how far we looked at that, or do you, Kirk, did you want more? I think we did note maybe one question earlier. Is there anything else that you were wanting to know about it?
I know what West Sheet does with STARS and Jaga Achieve. Just haven't been involved in that for quite a while, so I feel pretty comfortable with that. What I don't know about is Burton's side of that, Berkshire's side of that. So yeah, I don't necessarily have a question around it, but yeah, the culture for me would be a big deal for kids in that environment. That's a big deal. The way West Sheet does it, they do it right, and I can confirm that. I don't know, I can't speak to what Berkshire does or doesn't
Would
do.
it be maybe advantageous for you to do a tour, since you have the most
Well,
in-depth knowledge of one that you like culturally? Would it maybe be beneficial for you to take a tour of maybe Berkshire's program?
I mean, they don't have a Jaga Achieve program over there. STARS, I believe, but not a Jaga Achieve.
What's the, STARS is
STARS is
specifically for
autism,
autism,
yeah.
and a Jaga Achieve, how does that differ from STARS?
Yeah, it's more cognitive delays. Yeah, so it's a different program.
It does look like West G has a vocational programming for their students with special needs, so that was an additional service that neither Newbury
You know,
or.
Berkshire probably does.
We just haven't spoken with
But
the
when I
special-
sent these to them, West Two wanted to make sure they included it, and Berkshire chose not to. I mean, that doesn't mean they don't. I just want to be clear.
You hadn't spoken, she has not spoken with the special ed director through Berkshire. Okay, if we are good, we can move on to the transition plans. And I note that they're the same for both. I don't know, Jackie, if you wanted, it's pretty much in here what, we had Ledgemont going through the transition with Berkshire. I'm sure there's things that they've learned along the way, so they may be more experienced in that process, just because they've done it before. But that doesn't mean that, in my opinion, doesn't mean that it seems like both districts are willing to really try to do as much as they can to help that transition plan. successful and go smoothly for our students. I'm grateful, so I would say that's a strength. I mean, I have, at the ESC meetings, I have not seen any resistance to, it's just very welcoming and really inviting to make this process go well. So I'm encouraged by that. Anything else on that? Anything you guys would like to see out of the transition plan? Or that we can get more information to see if they can incorporate it?
I'd just like to see more of the plan, I guess.
Yeah, that wasn't the
Yeah,
purpose.
it's really, it's a description, salary.
Just
But
the
actual
logistics.
things.
Yeah, absolutely, like, let me see the tactical execution piece of this plan. That's a big deal.
I would like to see I would like to see socials between the districts, whether it's maybe they take a class at Newbury, if there's a specific class we can teach at Newbury and have their students come to, and vice versa, so we can get the kids interacting throughout the year. I know Berea Mid-Park did that when they went through there. They credit that as one of the best things they did in terms of their transition plan with their children, was dual teaching between the two schools as they were working out that phase. And I don't know, at a high school level, they might think we're real dweeby if we put on dances to get them intermingled, but something like that to help get them, maybe I know at Notre Dame they do an adoptive family program where you kind of have a family that you ask to help you get acclimated to whatever culture might be different from where you came from. Those types of things to help the kids know that they have supports in place that are very accessible.
No, I guess I thought I should just say out loud that both districts are very comfortable with having, if there would be a merger, that we would stay open another year. I know our whole staff is very nervous as they would be, so I think they would love to have some assurance that we are not talking about this coming school year.
Yeah, and I didn't incorporate that in our, in my opening, but that has been the assumption in the conversations with the ESC. And I know I've mentioned it previously, so I apologize for omitting it, but that has been where everybody feels comfortable in this discussion. I feel like it would be the best for all of the students to do that. So that is the assumed timeline would be after next year.
Starting with 2020 would be the first year. 2020, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so ballot plans, I think we've touched on this, but I think, you know, Marty had mentioned that while Berkshire doesn't have any plans for the ballot, that he feels that maybe the project may be undervalued.
Well, not only that, you just have to look historically. Kenston built a new school. They had to go to ballot. Streetsboro built a new school.
For expended, like just for
Operation.
Operations, and I know Berkshire said they had that covered and everything else. Everybody thinks they have it covered when they build a new building. Streetsboro just asked them about their new, what they put on, they built new schools and they had to go in the ballot. It's sort of the nature of the beast. There's more to it than just building a new school, throwing kids at it, and to see Berkshire has no plans to give them money. I want to see their plan a little better, to see how they're going to build this facility, how they're going to operate it, and everything else, and then that for the, and what's the timeline on that, everything. So I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, I'd like to see current forecast includes the new build. Do they have something big that shows the new build with operating monies included? That's excellent.
West G is on the ballot for renewal in May. if nothing else, we'll go on to the social emotional health, transportation, and both of these look like they're pretty similar per district, and that, you know, based on where we're at in this process, this is probably what we can expect to know. And moving forward, if there's more information that we need to gather, I'm sure it will be part of the process and will be communicated with us as we move along. But just to note, the transportation, they're not adding us to the routes. They're assuming they would be retaining our bus drivers. So, and that's both the same in both districts. Okay, the financial information is the last one, you guys. 8 o'clock. That is shocking. 2 hours. All right, so looking at the information begins with our current five-year forecast, then shows how the forecast would be affected if we put one, two, or both renewals on the ballot. And the information is followed by the West Geauga Newbury and the Berkshire Newbury merged forecasts. Would you guys like for Sarah to maybe do a little general overview, or did you guys have questions?
This separate handout that I gave you, if it's easier to look at this way, it's just broken out a little bit. And maybe this, I don't know, it's just,
Yes.
and on the little, on top of every scenario is saying, what it is.
I guess the most notable thing is what we've already said, that what's being left out for both West Geauga and for Newbury is that we both will have some serious facility bond issue that needs to be addressed, and neither of us know what that is yet. Right?
Right.
So on Burton's, is this where, are they showing the new building? This is just operational, right? It's like operational.
Right, I would have to get the new proposed levies.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd like to see.
Oh, okay.
Because they're not
including
collecting.
building this. Like, how do you,
This is their most current forecast, right?
yeah, 5-year
Right.
operating forecast. So what's it look like for the
Well,
new
their
building?
loan, shouldn't their loan be included in this? Because they already have the loan, they just don't get the money to pay it until it collects. And then just-
Yeah, so what's that number?
The additional proposed.
I'm sorry, did you guys have a string through it, Michelle?
I think we already did.
Yeah.
It's unknown.
I mean, we discussed this in
Yeah,
our
we went over
last
this.
session, when we looked at them combined, but is there anything that you guys wanted to specifically call out as a strength or a concern? I know last time somebody had said something about combining, there was a deficit in all directions or something, and I don't know if that's a discussion that you want to go further in.
No, I mean, it's just it's a fact. You're gonna be going into deficit, whether we go west or we go east, I mean, it is going to happen. The forecast is showing that even combined, now by us combining with them, it pushes it off a little bit. But, and we still haven't looked at seriously on us staying independent. What, not only just cost cutting factors here, but, okay, so you don't want to put on renewals, okay, what can we do to change it to keep this a viable school district? And I think that has to be, I understand the merger stuff, I personally don't agree with it, I'd still rather stay independent. I think that's something that we have to look at. What can we do and what can we change to stay independent?
I think we kind of touched on that. I mean, she gave
Well,
us
yeah,
the
but
rip
we
list.
haven't gone in as in-depth with that as we have with the possible merger numbers.
There's an additional handout that will be given.
Okay. So I mean, and that's the way that's just, you know, and I know that the purpose for this work session is to talk about the mergers.
Well, I think it was a comparison, and that was the goal,
Yeah,
is to
right,
see
right.
what it looks like with us, with them, and us next to them. And that's, you know, that's what we were here today, and I don't really want to get into conclusions. I know you said you're not yet there, or you're not, you know, you're still favor independent, but I'd really like to not get into conclusions of how we feel after we've, you know, just let this settle. This is a lot of information. And we do have a lot of outstanding questions that we've asked for those to come back to us.
To Marty's credit, I mean, we tried to do that earlier in the year, and we didn't really get very far on how to address the building size and the building condition for independence. We've been trying for 8 months now to get that done, and we haven't got a lot of clear-cut conclusions and solutions to that. So I guess what can we do as the builder of the group to get?
Right, I mean, we did have, you know, the facility itself, even talking to the school architect for its age and all that isn't bad. There's some things we do have to update, you know, the facades and all that. Structurally, it's still a sound building. It just needs to be, you know, first off, I would never, ever ask our community to pay for a new building here. It's just, it's not feasible, it's not right. If that's what anybody's going for, I'm not in on that at all. So I think the facility we have is a fine facility.
Do you think would you guys be open to doing another work session in a week or so to talk about how
No.
to right-size this?
No,
No
absolutely
way.
not.
Not till after the holidays.
It's not into that.
Yeah.
Here's the concern, right? So the projections is that in like 3 years, we'll be in the 200s. How do you justify heating and cooling this much building for less than 200 kids
That's
in the
why there's gotta
room?
be a plan on how do we get kids back? What's the program?
Yeah, what is the
I
program?
feel like that plan, and I'm not trying to say this is a trigger, but we're talking, we're just talking.
Let's just keep this.
Yeah, let's keep it, when
This is where it
when the last levy passed, that was the Hail Mary. You guys ramped up, you tried your best with the hires, you did all this work, the teachers got trained, programs got started, but it didn't help.
It slowed it down.
Well, people just are not moving into Newbury. How many houses are being built in Newbury?
Well, where they moving in Johnson County?
Well, and I mean, and you know, when I
That's a
say this,
joke.
I mean,
we just
You
have
gotta
like.
get people into the community before you can get more
Well,
kids in.
Right, and we don't have a grocery store, we
Well,
don't,
that's
that's a whole
right.
nine, but I
So
guess
that's
what I'm
just
saying
us.
is we have an older demographics
That's true.
that, you know, like I talked to the fence makers, and Gene's always said, he goes, you know, on Fairgate, he goes, when Michael and everybody was little, he goes, this was nothing but kids. He goes, guess what, we're all still here, and it's us, you
It's
know?
always been the
But-
case. that
Right,
Newbury-
not, well, it always hasn't been the case, because at one point, there were 1,200 kids in the school.
That
But,
was before open enrollment though,
well,
which
yeah,
begs the
but
question,
open
what's
enrollment
open?
isn't, I mean, it's taking a percentage of the kids. But even if there was open enrollment back in the 80s, guys, this was a fine school.
In the 80s, we had more programming.
So
In the 80s, we had more
So-
school.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, if for the independent thing to cast, we have to put as much effort into doing the study for independence and what we have to change in our curriculum and in our, and that's why I led off this whole conversation with, tearing something down is easy. Taking something away is easy. Rebuilding is the hard part. So we have to rebuild if you want to bring kids. And you can't say that, well, we tried it. It was a Hail Mary and we tried it. No, it was a 10-year plan. We're 5 years into that 10-year plan.
What number is your light switch?
What number?
Yeah, what number do we have to get to in this building for you to feel comfortable that we aren't able to offer the education that our community values? And they're
Probably
telling
only
you
three.
that they're not valuing what we're offering right
And
here.
that's what I'm saying, but we have to, as a school
So
system.
we have to listen, is what we have to do. And I'm trying to tell you that we're not listening if we refute the data that's in front of us. And this data shows us that we have to be exploring this option, and that's why we are. I've asked you
But
and I've asked everybody else.
But what
I've
I'm
asked-
saying is.
Listen to me. I asked for data and a strategy to stay independent. Now, to offer and to present alongside with merge. I have asked it from you, I've asked it from our previous administrators. I've yet to have that information.
Wait,
The
you
data-
asked me, a ditch digger, for how we're gonna do a.
You're the
No.
one, you
What
want,
I'm
you're
saying
saying
is-
you
Anyone that wants to
value
stay
it. I want to
can
hear
vote.
how to make that
How?
happen. And
But have you
I'm
asked our
looking
new
at all this data
superintendent that?
and I'm, yes, I have.
That's what this, I think it's unfair to say this doesn't present the three, I mean, this is the
I mean,
three.
it presents a little bit, but what I'm saying is, there is no in-depth study of, okay, this is what the cost is. There hasn't been that, you know, we know what the cost is. There were numbers given on what we have to do the facade, and what we have to do to repair
It's
the.
millions,
It's
millions.
1.4 million, not millions.
millions
I'd like
to
to
do.
call a rise to order, okay?
Before we get worse than we are now, I just want to make it clear that we have, I don't want to have this conversation of, I want to see you want to put it on the rest of us to come to you and present to you an independent option when we've done nothing but try to ask and see the data
That's
for
not
that.
true at
for
all.
that.
That is not
There was
true.
a
That
meeting
is
on
not
film
true.
where we were trying to have a brainstorm, and that's where we gave Mr. Porfia and the administration and Michelle a list of things we needed to see for that independent option. That was before May. I think that was like our third or fourth board meeting.
And that was the third and fourth, and since then, Michelle's gone. The leader at that time of our district is gone.
She wasn't gonna give us anything.
Oh, it's easy to say.
Well, it was easy to prove because we don't have it, but
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
saying,
that's a BS.
oh no, it's an actual fact because I sit here
We're
without it.
we're gonna go down a really bad place.
All I'm saying-
My recommendation right now is if we need to get something on the books, my understanding was that collectively, we were gonna come with 3 options, 3, collectively. Not him and I on one, you 3 on another. Collectively,
Compare.
all 3.
Comparing all of the data against each other.
We got a lot on 2.
Well,
Well, this
we
is the
compared.
data on all three.
We looked at-
And that's
we
why I'm
looked at
confused.
strengths.
Where are you guys missing the third? Because we had all 3 in all of these categories. So where are you missing your third?
Well, yeah, but it seems like the third there wasn't as in-depth. But all I'm saying is, and I'm not trying to start a fight, what I'm saying is like curriculum. It's been brought up that maybe we have to change our curriculum. Maybe we have to, do more cost cutting. Maybe we have to, well,
We've
let's
talked
look,
about
I
those in
mean,
the 5-year, we've already had those conversations in the last 3 meetings, though. You're acting like we haven't
The
talked
cycle
about
that
it.
we,
We
the
have.
cycle that I keep running into when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the data and I'm seeing, we cut, we have to right size and we have to look at how we're gonna do the facilities. But when we're looking at a long-term solution, I don't see it. I don't see how we can compete with our open enrollment with neighboring districts that offer the 3 priorities. If we look at the data, and that's what I'm asking us to do, if you look at the data, the 3 priorities that our community is telling us so far, what they want, our neighboring districts offer, and that's all I'm saying. We have to look at what they're telling us, we have to look at the data that we're collecting to use to make these decisions, and that's, I don't want to discount that. And I think that when you say.
and I'm not discounting it, here, you 3 were elected, okay? So that shows something. But I just think it's an all or nothing. Either we're going away. I mean, by the sense of this round table and us talking, or square table, is, the sense I'm getting is, it's either Berkshire or it's West Geauga and no independence. And I guess that, to me, I'm just not there yet. And
I
I
know,
told
I
you
get
that
it,
before.
I
I think we're selling our community short by not having a school. I think we're selling, because I think we are educating well. Our kids are going to the same colleges everybody else is going to. Our kids are doing the same things. They're still being productive. So now I understand with the numbers of students, and your point is right. What is your cutoff, Marty? Is it 300? Yeah, probably.
We're almost there. We're at
Well, I know,
351.
and we're not helping the situation by constantly, all I wanted to do is see a 5 to 10 year where we weren't talking consolidation. And you know, to be honest, hey, maybe our ship sailed. Maybe it's time for the school to close. I personally don't believe it. I like having a small school. I enjoyed sending my kids to a small school. I enjoy, and you know, I've told people before, maybe I'm too involved with coaching and everything else because I'm at this school every day. So I see these kids. You know, we're fixing stuff here, we're doing stuff here. You know, sometimes I think I'm a custodian. But, so maybe I'm not there yet to jump in on this, let's make the school go away. I like the smallness, I like the closeness, I like the personalization of this school. That's just me. So when
But are we being fair to the taxpayers?
Yeah, but you know what, to me.
Are we?
Yeah, I do.
You think
I
we
think
are?
we are.
Oh, okay.
I do. Education costs. I mean,
Of course
when
it
you went
costs.
to school, now can we do it better? Sure. Can we do it better?
If we do it
Yeah, I
better, that
believe we
means our
can.
class sizes change, and what you're saying you value is a small class size.
Yeah, but their class sizes just because of the kids we have. The class sizes aren't gonna balloon up to 30.
Because we have so much.
Right. I mean, what we're saying is the class sizes may go up to 20. But that doesn't take away the personalization. I'm talking about with the kids just being in this. It's almost like a family. And do I think we can do that effectively and cost effectively and maybe give our taxpayers a break? Sure.
How?
You have-
Even if we pass these renewals, if we want to fix that building, we're going to have to ask for more money.
I think we have to look at all the plans, Terry. I really do. And it's not like the building, those are the same issues.
But the heating and cooling costs for 300 kids, how do you justify? Like, there's just certain things.
Heating
like,
and cooling is
I'm just saying,
is
like,
a drop in the bucket
we don't need all
compared to
that
everything
space.
else.
And if you have you are in the building all the time, and if you have a solution on how we can
Well,
use
I
just
mean,
a
good
portion of that
example,
building, we
like,
need to hear
right
it.
now, I'm so happy to see us in this building, in this
Sure.
room. This is what it should be used for, except there should be a large screen there. There should be, you know, these buildings, and it shouldn't be just us using it. It should be the community using it.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you can.
But I think it has to take a whole change in culture for this.
And
So I guess what I'm saying is, what you guys are telling me, and I get it, is we don't have the time to do it. Okay, that doesn't mean I have to jump on board with you. I'm just saying, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna have a different idea.
And I do appreciate that, honestly. You and I, we've had really constructive conversations about this, and I think this is one of them. But time that's a risk, that's a variable in this conversation, and also community support. And while you support it, you know, I send my kids here, I value the education as well. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying we can't, it has to be a community as a whole. We represent the community. We don't make the decision based on our individual.
But you represent a segment of the community.
We as a whole, as board, we've all been elected to represent what our community values, and we have to listen to that. And I don't want
But I
to.
mean, for as many people that come, you know what, it doesn't matter.
We've
We've gone down to
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Are we gonna change your
I think-
mind?
No, I think this is the one,
You're not
I
gonna change
think
ours.
this is the
I think we're spinning our
best
wheels and-
conversation
and
that we've
wasting
had to
time,
point.
to be
And
honest
I
with
just
you.
want to say one more time that it is naive to discredit. I think when this would have happened, May 2013, if we weren't the ones who pulled out, we could have got the community on board and say, okay, we have no option, let's make this the best we can make it.
Can I
Like
call
I said,
something
wait,
out?
no, let's just please let all this drop. all of it drop, let's just move on.
Yep.
Because.
I'm just saying,
That's where I'm at.
I'm saying you're being
Let's
naive to think
Yeah.
that the support is there for the community, and when the levies start to pass, then we don't have an option anymore. Start to fail, we don't
Here's
have
the
an
deal.
option.
Here's a,
Can I seriously, we're not gonna get anywhere right now. We truly are not gonna get anywhere. My recommendation is we move on with the agenda. If it's done with this conversation and we're going into executive session, let's go there.
Okay.
Because right now, my clock is ticking.
Okay, Kirk, I will say, I appreciate you moving it along, and I think it could have value, but we do have a responsibility to have these conversations in
I'm
public.
with you.
And as a board.
I'm with you, but we're talking the same
Yeah.
thing for 15 minutes now. We're not getting
I
anywhere.
understand you, I just want you to understand the importance of having these conversations.
Trust me.
And
I'm with you.
participating in them.
I'm with you.
Right, so,
Keep moving.
anyone else have anything to offer besides the direction of where we were headed? But is there any summary or anything that you guys feel? Our next board meeting is on the 10th of December. It's a regular meeting. A lot can happen from now until then, but I guess we'll look forward to getting some of those conclusions, some of those answers presented. Okay. So, the motion to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employee or official.
so moved.
Second?
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Sadovich?
Yes.
Mr. Simpkins?
Yes.
Mrs. South?
Yes.
And
Sorry. I'm sorry, there, to you, Seth, I was just gonna say no vote to call after the
No, that's, I
executive.
want to, you have to say one of those, you can't say unless you're going to cover them all, that's like.
Yeah, it is,
Which
it is
involved
personnel,
Personnel.
yes.
And-
Sorry.